We are back on Morning Line talking about the war in Ukraine. With me this morning, Thomas Schwartz from Vanderbilt. It's good to have you on, sir. It's always a pleasure. You know, we have Ricky who waited through the break. Let's just take a phone call from him, just get his question or thought. Ricky, good morning. Hi, Ricky.
Good morning.
Morning.
I got a question, two questions. One about the gas problem. Don't the government have reserves somewhere for the military? Can't they go into that? And about the war over there, they need to do a no-fly zone like they wanted to where nobody get hurt. And thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, let's hit on a couple of those. The gas prices, I know we're going to get a call on this, and we're showing you some video as well as we talk about the scene there and the soldiers and the like. Gas, all right, gas has gone up, and there have been so many stories trying to explain. There's really not a gas shortage of supply necessarily. I know some, is there? I mean, it's like in this country, it's just the prices are set. And when there's unrest in the world,
that's right,
things go up.
No, this is reminiscent. If you have a historical perspective, this is reminiscent of what happened back in the 70s with the Middle East. Every time there was a conflict in the Middle East, particularly the first one, the Yom Kippur War in October of '73, the Arab countries boycotted or would not sell their oil to the United States, so that shot the price up. Oil is a world market, the price set by the world market for energy reserves, and so this is the ban on Russian oil, the fact that many countries, a lot of Russian oil is not being sold or doesn't have a market yet. That's going to drive the price up, and we are going to face that. We have reserves. The caller was correct to say we have reserves, but they will not. The first release that President Biden authorized was only about a 3-day supply for the United States, so it's not going to go very far in really lowering the price. And I think probably, although they might tap into them again, I doubt that it will have much effect on the price.
Yeah, but you know, it's interesting, at least some of the more recent polling shows the majority of Americans approve of the idea of stopping to buy Russian oil.
Yeah,
stopping
absolutely.
That, recognizing that it could be more, but we're willing to bite the bullet. Look, from my perspective, if it helps put the squeeze on Putin, and I have to pay an extra $1 or $2 for, you know, filling up my gas, I'm okay with that short term. And I know for some people it's really hitting them harder. I'm able to afford a couple bucks more. I think they said the most recent numbers as it stands now, and gas is what, about $4 plus a gallon around here. It could mean if it were to stay at that on a regular basis, the average Tennessean may spend an extra $2,000 a year on gas, which is not chump change. I understand that. That's a lot of money. But from my perspective, and it seems like most Americans are like, look, if this is, you know, it hits us a bit in the pocketbook, but it's really put the squeeze on him. And gas and oil money is the big for him, for Russia.
No, I mean, if you track Putin's aggressiveness across time, you'll see that he was particularly aggressive when oil prices are high, when he's getting a lot of money in, when he can afford it. And this is absolutely crucial to his ability to project military power, is getting that. Now, the caller also asked about a no-fly zone. That's much more complicated because of a fear that if we project a no-fly zone, we will be fighting with Russian jets, and that could escalate the conflict.
Now, do the Ukrainians, they have an air force, I guess. Are they up there fighting, are there dogfights? Are they fighting Russian jets the same way? Do they have the means to do this? And talk a bit about how Poland offered some planes as well.
Right.
But
Poland offered to send planes to Germany that then could be sent to the Ukraine. The United States is resisting that because of a fear of any sort of escalation that might lead to direct conflict with the Russians. There is a Ukrainian Air Force. One of the most interesting aspects of the conflict is it was assumed at the beginning that Russia would dominate the airspace over Ukraine, and they haven't been able to. This is partly from anti-aircraft fire from the Ukraine, but also from there still being a Ukrainian Air Force which has resisted. But it's unlikely. Russia can certainly eventually defeat those forces, and that's why the Ukrainians, I think, want a no-fly zone.
Okay, and is this going to be a war of attrition if it takes a while? And as you said, there may be a negotiation at some point if this slows down, but we don't really have a body count at this point, do we? Now, I mean, if it comes down to just who can afford to lose more bodies, well, the Russians have, what, over 100,000 troops in Ukraine now. But, I mean, do we know, I mean, would you guess at this point how many, are we talking thousands of Ukrainians have been killed at this point?
I would guess that in the soldiers, although we don't have an accurate body count, and both sides
And
are
as
sort
for
of spinning
Russians,
it.
are we guessing thousands of Russians have died?
Yeah, the Ukrainians have claimed that they've killed 5,000 Russians. The Russians admit to casualties of about 500. So, you know, somewhere in that we don't know what's going on. And I don't think attrition is the right word as particular as, because I don't think it would last that long. I think what you're really getting at, though, is that Russian tactics may get more and more destructive in terms of bombing and sending missiles and destroying cities, and that could cause real hardship for the Ukrainians.
Yeah. Let's take a call from Diane. Diane, good morning to you, Diane. What's on your mind?
Yes, good morning. Well, of course, Ukraine is on my mind.
Sure.
But Putin, this is not his end game. He wants us. He's happy that Poland has offered those planes because he wants another country to turn around and make what he calls a move toward Russia as a third party. He wants this to happen because Ukraine is not his end game. And what I'm curious about is, why is China so quiet? What are they up to? What's their real role off in this? They're doing something very, very quietly with Russia. And they're in this. Somehow, they're in this mix, and they plan on coming out sooner or later. I'm just wondering what their end game is, because this is not the bottom line of why Putin started this. He started this close to home because he knew that, you know, he could get over there in Ukraine. You come to America, you don't have to teach us how to use guns. You don't have to teach us how to make Mardi Gras cocktails. We're already good at doing things like that to each other over here. So you come over here to our street with that. That's all I got to say this morning.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, the issue of China is fascinating, and the caller is right that this is something everybody has been speculating about. If you recall, Putin and Xi Jinping had a set of negotiations right before the Olympics. It seems clear that Xi Jinping said that he would at least initially support Russia in any sort of military action. But China has been cautious. China doesn't want to get caught up in sanctions. On the other hand, Xi Jinping sees perhaps, again, we don't know this for a fact, but perhaps sees in what's going on in the Ukraine something that could be a lesson for China in terms of when it wants to take Taiwan and try to coerce Taiwan back into its country. So he may want to see Putin succeed in order to set a precedent for his own plans for conquest. On the other hand, China is economically tied to Russia. Russia is not as successful an economy, and so China doesn't want to lose its contacts with the West. It doesn't want to be sanctioned. So it's an interesting tightrope that China's walking. China abstained from the Security Council resolution that condemned Russia, so it's tried to stay out of it. It hasn't voted with Russia, but on the other hand, I think there is some belief that Xi Jinping sees this as a model for what will happen with Taiwan.
Okay, watching it very closely then. Let's go to Tom next. Tom, good morning. Hi, Tom.
Good morning, people. Let me see. Putin kills children. Donald Trump loves Putin. Let's talk about that.
Well, it's interesting. You know, Trump had a different relationship, I think, than Biden did with Putin.
Yes.
You know, I don't know. A lot of people like to say, well, this never would have happened. The president, former President Trump says, well, if I was still in office, this wouldn't have happened. I think one way or the other, Putin was going to do this, whether Trump was there or Biden. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's hard to say, because Donald Trump certainly did have a different relationship with Putin. He praised him. He said at a news conference that he took his word about not interfering in the elections, which went against our intelligence community. On the other hand, Trump's administration sanctioned Russia and continued and started doing something that the Obama administration didn't do, which was sending lethal aid to Ukraine, sending military aid to Ukraine. So there was a sort of contradictory aspect to the Trump administration administration's policies toward Russia that was Trump's administration had tons of contradictions, so it's hard to necessarily say where that went.
It seemed like President Trump at the time, enjoyed, as he is something of a showman as well, and came from entertainment to a degree as well as a business, but he liked the moments he shared with these despots, be it Kim Jong-un or Putin. But that was on the surface, and that was fine. And I think any kind of communication, personally, can be a good thing. But meanwhile, behind the scenes still, America still put sanctions on North Korea. Under the Trump administration, they were there, and as you just said there. So the contradiction. But on the surface, he would be there shaking hands, saying nice things.
Yes.
But behind, you don't think that he was just kind of glad-handing him.
No, it's something that historians will probably fight about for years, because his rhetoric and his personal behavior was at odds with some of the policies that his administration pursued.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we have to take a break. When we get back, just want to talk about some concerns that you have if it escalated, if there were to be, these planes from Poland that took to the air, and all of a sudden the military aspect, and people bring up the fact that Putin does have nuclear weapons, of course, and you sure don't even want to think about going there and how it could escalate to that point. We'll take a break, be back, and we'll take James and others who are online right after this. Stay with us.